Yeah, we still have
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, these notifications. Okay. So hi, everyone. Welcome to LPI Intern Stories, the 2023 edition. So before we get started, just a reminder here, we're using Zoom webinar. So you won't be able to turn on your cameras or unmute your microphones, but we do really want to hear from everyone who's participating today. So if you have questions, you can enter them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we will make sure we bring them up with our panel of awesome interns. Before we meet that panel, let me just provide a little bit of background information. So the LPI Summer Intern Program in Planetary Science provides undergraduate students with an opportunity to perform cutting-edge research, learn from a variety of respected planetary scientists, and discover exciting careers in the field of planetary science. During this 10-week-long internship, students have opportunities to participate in enrichment activities, research, and other activities like social events. Summer interns work one-on-one with a scientist from the LPI or from NASA's Johnson Space Center on a research project. Interns are selected by project advisors who look for academic excellence and scientific interest and backgrounds that are compatible with their project needs. Students with majors in physical and natural science, engineering, computer science, and mathematics have all participated in this program, but other students are eligible as well. So now we're going to meet some of our summer interns from 2023. And let me switch over. All right, so we're going to start with Candace. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Candace. I come from California State University, Long Beach, and I am a geology major going into my senior year this coming semester. And this summer, I've been working at the Johnson Space Center with my mentor, looking at minerals here on Earth that are similar to minerals we believe are on Mars, in order to better understand them and be able to identify different geologic features on Mars through rovers or satellite stuff. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm Danielle. I'm from Germany. I go to university at Imperial College London in England. There I study Earth and Planetary Science, and I've just finished my third year. So I'm going to start my fourth year in October. And this summer I'm working on a project about the Schrödinger Basin crater rays, which are these long radial features extending from the Schrödinger Basin on the moon. So it's basically a project about impact cratering. So a mixture of geophysics and geology, I would say.
Hi, my name is Alana. I'm going into my senior year at Colby College in Maine, where I study geology and astronomy. And this summer, I'm also at the Johnson Space Center, and I'm studying presolar grains in a primitive meteorite, which are small remnants of dust from other stars that we can see in meteorites today.
Hey, my name is Jared McCallion. I study geographic information science and disaster preparedness emergency management at Rowan University. And my project is morphometric characterization of lunar landing sites.
Hi, I am Kyla Mallow, and I am from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, going to Carleton University, studying biochemistry and biotechnology with a physics minor. And my project is on developing a DNA sequencing protocol so that we can rapidly sequence DNA and the microbiome of microbes inoculated into a Martian regolith simulant.
Awesome. Thank you all. Next, we're going to hear from Claudia.
Thank you, Grace. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LPI Stories. My name is Claudia Bellard. I am the Senior Program Coordinator for the LPI Internship Program. Back to you, Grace.
All right. So for our panel, the first question I want to ask you all is this question about getting involved in research. So starting off a research project can be really intimidating, especially if you've never done it before. And if you have the opportunity to do research in school as a high schooler or an undergraduate, it's a really great way to get your foot in the door. So I would like to ask each of you how you got started. And this time, let's start at this end. Kyla.
Yeah. Okay. So I got started in research in first year to a degree. So initially our school offers this thing called a DSRI, which is the Dean Summer Research Internship Program, where you submit an application, and if it gets accepted, you get funded for the summer to work with a professor on a research project. Unfortunately, I didn't get accepted, and then COVID happened, so I couldn't volunteer in a lab. And then I was stuck for about 2 years, not necessarily being able to do research. Within this time, I got a position at a wastewater management facility and built up a lot of like the hands-on skills necessary. And then I got a position actually helping out with some of the research, although not all of the research, with Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada, and doing like northern food systems and pest management. And then I volunteered at the same professor's lab that I was going to do the DSRI with over the school year, and I applied for this internship, and that's basically my research background.
That's fantastic. Sorry, Jared. That's fantastic. I love that, like, it's a little circuitous that happens, but a setback isn't a failure and you find a different route.
Yeah.
Jared, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually kind of fell into research, started with a geographic information science class I took last fall called Drones, Planes, and Satellites. I took that class just on a whim because I'm a drone operator. And so I got there, and the class structure was really interesting. The whole class was actually just kind of one semester long research project that we all kind of played a part in. Each student contributed at where they were at with their level of knowledge relating to remote sensing capabilities. And by the end of it, we had this cohesive project to look at levels of deforestation in the city of Newark in New Jersey from 2019 to 2022. And something about that research process really just stuck with me. And armed with that, I applied to this internship, and I'm doing remote sensing of the lunar surface. So, yeah.
So just a little follow-up. What's the bridge between deforestation in New Jersey and studying a planetary surface? Like, what do you see as that link?
Remote sensing data.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, except for one, it's no, they're both coming from satellites.
Okay.
It's just different planetary bodies. Yep.
So it's really working with the data, the remote sensing
Absolutely.
process that you really like.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Ilana?
Yeah, so in high school, I was really lucky to have an earth science class, and I was really interested in it. And then going into college, I knew I was maybe interested in studying geology. And during our admitted students week, I got to meet a few different geology professors, and one of them really stuck out as interesting to me, and she shared what her research is, which is planetary geology research. And so I kind of thought a little bit about it. I knew I wanted to maybe work more closely with this professor in future years. So I signed up for the classes she taught. I made sure to kind of pay attention and ask questions, and that kind of led me to working in her lab soon during my freshman year, actually, with just kind of a small research project characterizing the composition of some Apollo lunar samples. And it was that kind of first experience with collecting data for astromaterials that really got me interested and helped me secure a spot working with her during the summer, and then later applying to some more external internships like this one and the NASA Super Internship as well.
That's great. Yeah, so you found your entry into the planetary science pipeline like pretty early and have enjoyed pursuing it and building on that.
Yeah, and I think a part of that was maybe still encouraging myself to learn more about other fields of planetary science that aren't just what I started off with freshman year, because it's such a big field and there's really a lot to learn from it.
Danielle?
Yeah, so my school, my university, offers undergraduate research projects during the summer, and I applied for one during my first year, but then that didn't work out. And my other research internship that I also applied for got canceled because of COVID. And then I instead just traveled during the summer, which was also nice. And then after my second year, I again wanted to do a research internship, but then I decided to go on a year abroad to Australia and traveled there a bit more. So I, again, ended up not doing a research internship or anything research related. And I was actually really concerned about that because I thought it might be too late to start in your third year. But then last year, I worked on a research project about seismology, which was basically just a course they offered during the third year. So it was just a module I selected and then, worked on a short seismology project. So quite different from what I'm doing right now. And so that was basically my first and only research experience. And now I'm doing this internship here and all worked out. So it's never too late.
I love that. It's never too late, and late is better than never.
Exactly.
I ended up going to graduate school for geochemistry, and I didn't do any research until the spring semester of my final year of college.
Yeah.
And it was enough. So never too late. Candace, what about you?
Yeah, I actually want to kind of echo what Danielle was saying about it never being too late. I actually started school at a community college, but we had a really great STEM program that taught us about research and everything that exists in that world, and we had really good mentors and who taught us how to get into that, how to look for research internships and things like that. And so I had actually applied to a few when I was still in community college, but I didn't get any of them. So I was discouraged. And then going into my senior year, this coming year, this is kind of my last chance to do the undergraduate research. So luckily, I also got a small scholarship from my school where they also offer a mentor professor to be assigned to you. And she kind of just took me and was like, "You're going to work in my lab this semester." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Thank you." And so I did a lot of sample prep stuff with her. And then I did that for 2 semesters. And last semester, I also reached out to one of my other professors who does work that I really enjoy. And I was like, "Hey, do you need any help in the lab? I'm just trying to get whatever experience I can get to try and add to my resume." And he was like, "Yeah, sure. You can come do mineral picking with me for the rest of the semester." So that worked out. And I feel like having those small experiences with doing research at school really helps to give you more experience to put on your resume and to put on your applications. And I think having that is what really helped me get this internship at the last minute before it was too late.
And also, I think having those experiences lets you figure out if you actually enjoy it, if you want to do it. So one of the questions that I'm also now going to open up to all of you is, we've all experienced academic study, what that is like. Doing research is different in some ways. There's overlap. So what are the skills you use most frequently when you're doing research during this summer? What are the skills you've developed and found really useful? Has any of that surprised you or carried over directly from what you learned? So I'm going to start with Jared on this one because we already touched on remote sensing a little bit.
Yeah, so I'd say some of the most important skills I've used so far are not the hard skills, but instead some soft skills like time management. It is 10 times out of 10, that is going to be the deciding factor in how much gets done, how well it gets done. And really all of the hard skills are going to come down to determination to learn. If you don't come in already knowing these things, you can use your time management skills to teach yourself these things, to have your mentors teach you these things, to draw on the wealth of knowledge that is around you in this place to make yourself better in an academic sense. And so I'd say that those two skills of just applying determination and time management are very big. But to become more specific with the question, what I've been using specifically are these remote sensing data analysis programs. So I come from a GIS program where I use a lot of ArcGIS Pro, QGIS, other programs like that. But I've started using at this internship some more specific programs for planetary science. And so it's really interesting to get hands-on experience with those, to be able to have a facilitated project where I'm able to do a deep dive into something I normally wouldn't.
So just to follow on again, okay, so I really like this answer. That was a great answer.
Thanks.
And I'm going to follow this structure with the rest of you now, hear about some of your soft skills, as well as some of the more technical skills you've developed or acquired since being here. But so you're saying that if you started off with, a background, even an introductory background in something like GIS, ArcGIS, that it is translatable to doing a much more specific, kind of project in planetary science.
Oh, for sure.
You didn't come in knowing how to use these planetary science specific data sets or programs.
Right. So I was very eager. So I was, I had a GIS class last semester where I went out of my way to sort of teach myself some of these skills. And I hadn't known about some of these more specific programs that I've been using this summer, but I just tried my best to do what I could with ArcGIS Pro. So what I had already known to accomplish the goal I was trying to do lunar surface analysis for a final project last semester. And so I'd say it was equal parts preparation and banging my head against the wall to try and, gain the skills with what I already knew. But, ultimately, I can confidently say that even with just a rudimentary understanding of one program and experience in that field, you can transfer it to something more specific. I'd say knowledge builds in that way, general to specific. It's very difficult to expect to be able to start out with highly specific knowledge and expect to succeed very quickly with only specific knowledge. You find what you're good at, you find what you like in a general sense, and you build on top of that to more and more specific goals and interests.
I think that's really well said.
Thanks.
And I'm going to open it up to the rest of our panel. Does anyone want to share about skills that they've grown, that they've used, anything that, surprised you that's, most valuable? So like time management or something of the sort. All right, Danielle.
I can say something about that really quickly. So what I think is different to just doing courses at university and studying for exams and so on is that research is less about having the right answers immediately. It's more about being able to ask the right questions. And that's something I learned here because you really have to take initiative. You have to be curious. You have to want to know more about it. And then after a while, you just learn what the right questions are, because that's something I didn't know from the start on. I didn't really know how do researchers come up with all those questions. How do they know what to do research about? And working on this research project has really helped me with that.
I can jump in. I think something that's a little different from high school classes for sure, and even maybe some introductory classes in college, is that maybe we're used to dealing with readings or kind of problem sets on a very kind of linear kind of workflow. Like you do your reading and you take notes on it, and then you maybe take a test, and you might put it away for a while and not think about it until the final. But in research, you're kind of always coming back to your readings, you're revisiting old methods maybe, and it's more of a kind of engaged process where it's really important to keep track of what you do the whole time and not let yourself kind of feel bad if you have to go back to something or re-reference your papers that you read before even starting the internship. And so that's something that is a skill to really learn, but it happens kind of naturally as you do research. And it's also something that maybe a seminar style class would have in college, which is a good way to learn how to start reading scientific papers and learning how to kind of ask those questions like Danielle mentioned.
I'm also going to jump in and kind of echo what everyone else has been saying. My project is a little different from everyone else's in that it's protocol development. And in that way, we don't really care about the data that comes out. It's used as a tool to analyze how well our protocol worked. And so we're not searching for the correct data set. We're searching for a data set that aligns with what we, like what constants we have already in place. So for example, we're putting in this DNA set that has specific concentrations of specific species. If we don't get that back out, we know something along the way went wrong. And this is very different from what I've done in any university class or anything before, because normally you're given a protocol that works already, or you're given a reading that you should take as the literature value. Whereas with this, you're the one coming up with the protocol and you're the one trying to troubleshoot the protocol. So reading comprehension and the analysis skills, being able to troubleshoot is incredibly important in research in general, especially if you want to do protocol development.
I guess I could also jump in. I'm not sure if this is necessarily like a traditional skill that people think of, but I think it's really important to learn how to, kind of going back to what Danielle was saying, learn how to ask questions, but learn how to ask for help when you need it. That's something that I've always struggled with. I definitely struggled with it again here. But I think like practicing talking to your professors, to your teachers, when you don't understand something, like don't be afraid to say, hey, I don't understand this, I need help. Because that really becomes important when you're starting to learn to do independent research. And I imagine that it's only going to be more important as we keep going and, become actual research scientists on our own without having necessarily a mentor who is available all the time, So learn how to, and don't just ask for help from like your professor, or your mentor, or your teacher either. Like ask students, ask your classmates, like learn to be resourceful and find ways to get help from wherever you can. It's really important.
Yeah, those are all really great pieces of advice, and something that like kind of came up a little bit in everybody's responses in one way or another was like this iterative process and this process of working with others. So I kind of want to hear from you guys about how you learned about the internship, what it's like to work with, a real scientist, with your mentor, along this line of asking for help. Did you have trouble with the application process? What did that look like? So I'm going to start off with Danielle. How did you hear about the internship?
So the internship was advertised by my university on the careers website, and I was just scrolling through it, looking for opportunities, and then I saw Planetary Science, which is something I'm very interested in. So yeah, I decided to apply, and I think, before I applied, I think coming from Europe, I didn't even know that this internship was with like NASA and the LPI. So I didn't even know that it was such a big thing. And I think that was the reason why I even started my application, and I'm glad I did. And yeah, so that's pretty much how I heard about it. Yeah.
I want to make a little shout out to if you're at a university or a community college, anywhere that has somewhere like career services, student services, try to see what they have. You never know what you'll find or how they could assist you. Sometimes those folks have connections to really cool programs that you might otherwise not hear about. So like Candace was saying, it's not just your professors that are there to support you. It's this whole group. And then for those of us, for those joining online, I just want to make a quick reminder, if you have questions for our panelists, you can enter those into the Q&A. That's the easiest way for us to see them. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next question, which was, Ilana, can you tell us a little bit about the application process and your process going through it?
Sure. So, well, I heard about this from my mentor back at school, and she encouraged me to apply. And so I started looking at the questions, and there are a few essay questions, and it's always helpful to kind of just do a big brainstorm and jot down any bullet points that come to mind, draw on any experience you have, and then later kind of have a think through it and think about maybe what sort of goals and skills this program is looking for and how your experiences fit into that. And even if you feel like it might not traditionally fit in, you can really focus on what kinds of soft skills you have, like what Jared was saying, or what kinds of maybe learning experiences you have that would also apply to an internship position. So I applied a couple times to this internship. I didn't get in the first time, which is very common. But so yeah, I applied, and I think it took me a little bit. I was disappointed, clearly, but there's always another year when you're an undergrad, and you can apply again. So I kind of took a look back at my application the second year. I had a few things I could add to it, which felt really great. But I also just kind of tried to read my application as if, I was trying to see whether or not I would let this person in. And I tried to evaluate maybe what skills could be described a little more, or how could I tie in some recent classes that I've taken, or any like extracurricular experiences. Something else I really tried to do was kind of find my own voice for my application, and maybe decide a little more like what kind of work do I want to do in the future, and how can that narrative help me shape the experiences I've already had. So, for example, I worked at a museum for a little bit, and I really enjoyed that. And so then I started to do some research into what kinds of planetary science jobs you might find in a museum. And then I tried to maybe expand a little more on what kind of experience I would like at the LPI and how that would help me achieve that goal later on. So it can help to have a kind of long-term goal, but also we're still young, and it's okay to not exactly know what you want to do. But just trying to be clear about your skills and your passion for this is really important.
That's a great answer. Thank you for going into all that detail about your process. And something I think is super important that you mentioned is like finding your voice. You're not just coming in to do a project, you're going to work really closely with someone for a whole summer. So having them be able to kind of get a sense of who you are and what you're going to be like to work with can help a lot in making your application stand out, because then whoever you might end up working with, they can get a sense of who's really behind this application, who the person is that they are going to work with for a lot of the summer. So speaking of working with folks, I was hoping maybe Jared and Kayla, can you tell us a little bit about maybe what it was like to come in and meet your mentor, how it's been to work with, a real scientist in real labs. Were you anxious about that? Were you super confident or a little nervous? And, what have you gotten to do with your mentor? Like a little bit about the structure of how you meet with them and things like that.
So my mentor is Dr. Kendall Lynch, and I was actually really excited to come in and work with her. I sent an email beforehand, and it was actually kind of a funny email because it was literally like, I don't know how to write a good email, but I'm excited and to be working with you over the summer. And that was it. And then I came in and we met up, and I just became more and more excited about the project. I was originally supposed to be working on a different project, but then I got worked into this new one, this protocol development one that actually aligns with my program a lot better and like with my past experience. So it didn't feel as intimidating as it initially did when it was a big leap from what was my original program. And so me and my mentor, along with her master's student, Jessica, meet up 2 times a week to discuss our project and how everything is going. But I can always like knock on her door or like reach out to her if I have any questions that need attention that I might not want to wait to ask.
And then just to build on that, I'd say I had a pretty similar experience. Coming into it, I can say I was both very anxious and excited to meet my mentors and work with them. For reference, I'm working with Dr. Sam Lawrence over at the Johnson Space Center and Dr. Julie Stopar here at the LPI. And there was sort of this notion in my head that I like leading up to this internship, I was like, how am I going to convince them that I'm a prodigy in this, in my research project? And I got closer to it and I realized, you know what, I'm coming here to learn. I'm coming here to learn from these people. And then instead of trying to, pretend like I'm more experienced than I actually am, what became my goal and what became of chief importance to me was being a sponge, was learning and absorbing everything I can while I have the opportunity to work with these people who I look up to so much as possible, instead of trying to posture as knowing more than I actually do.
Yeah, it can be so tempting to like armor yourself with extra that maybe you don't possess yet, and that's fine. It's an internship. The mentors know that you're coming in to learn. So that's a great attitude, and just being open-minded and having good communication with your mentor, reaching out to them when you need help, like Kyla was saying, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a question online from Noah, who said, I'm currently in high school and am very interested in pursuing a degree in planetary science in college. Awesome. Is there anything you would recommend a high schooler study or participate in as a high school student to best prepare them for college success / internship success in the field? Anybody want to, Kyla?
I just say find what you're interested in, to be honest. Like, you're in high school, you have like a whole host of years in front of you. And so find what you're interested in and find what you're not interested in, and use both of those to guide what you're going to do. So for example, I didn't really see myself in high school even being into space, interested in doing something related to space or astrobiology or even plant science. But I found myself really interested in agriculture. And so I ended up pursuing biochemistry and biotechnology, found out that I really liked math, so I added physics. And then I kind of gradually got more and more comfortable with the idea that I can incorporate all of these things into astrobiology. Find out what's interesting to you and just pursue that.
That's such a great answer. And we'll get more input. I just want to touch on what you said and really emphasize that find what you're interested in, and probably anything you're interested in has a route that will take you into planetary science if that's the thing you want to do. Planetary science is an incredibly multidisciplinary field, meaning if you have any kind of STEM background, you could get involved. But even if you don't, there are communicators and administrators and artists and so many different kinds of expertise that are needed to make planetary science what it is. So pursue the things that interest you and excite you, but there's going to be an avenue to bring that back to planetary science. Does anyone else have something they want to add?
So on the topic of specializations within planetary science, I feel I can speak on that, pretty heavily, doing planetary cartography and remote sensing. And so what I would recommend is actually, as great as that is, as great as it is that you can pretty much find any niche within this field and explore it. It's very important that you understand that you should have a foundational understanding of your mathematics, your sciences, for if not for anything else, for communication with your colleagues, to be able to have a mutual understanding of different types of research and different types of work, so that if you fully want to enter the field of planetary science, you are able to enter these interdisciplinary conversations and speak the language of STEM, essentially.
I just wanted to say, going back to the what can you do now part of the question, read books, teach yourself things about space, about planetary science, whatever that is, whatever interests you, read books. It doesn't have to be like crazy papers or like any sort of like really hard reading. Just read whatever you can find in the library. Also, if you can find clubs with interests that are aligned with that, that's also great, because that you'll learn things there, but you'll also get to find cool experiences. Like, maybe they'll have speakers come and talk or something like that. If your school has any sort of, clubs or whatever, I'm sure that they have like something related. If they don't, your college will for sure. And so you don't have to overwhelm yourself now. If you are still in high school, I think that's what you said. Like, don't overwhelm yourself now, but, just read books, join whatever clubs you can find, talk to your friends about stuff, watch YouTube videos, whatever that is, just learn whatever you can right now, and go try and find experiences to get your interest piqued.
Thank you, Candace. And thank you for bringing it back to the action items, because I think like, that's the most important thing. So thank you, Noah, for your question. Other folks, feel free to drop questions into the Q&A. And so my next question is also for you, Candace. What are you hoping to get out of this internship?
Well, since we're at the end, I feel like I have already gotten a lot out of it. But coming into this, I was really hoping to get more in-depth experience so that I can really figure out if like research is the route that I would like to go. I have been on this journey of trying to figure out what I want to do with my life for a very long time. And it took me many, many years. Straight out of high school, I was originally accepted to the Art Institute of Fashion Marketing in Hollywood, completely different from where I am now. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I think that that's a super important thing to like tell people that are younger. Like, you don't have to stress about knowing exactly what you want to do like at this moment. It's okay. It'll come to you. You'll find it. But yeah, it took me a long time to get here. I'm sorry can you repeat the question again?
Not a problem. The question was, what do you hope to get out of it? Or what do you feel you have gotten out of it?
Yeah. So that was the big thing, was, trying to make sure that this is what I want to do. And I think I've accomplished that. I've enjoyed my time here greatly. I think that it's been amazing. Another thing too, that I was hoping to get is networking, connections, asking questions, not just from my mentor, but everybody else, trying to figure out like what schools are potential good schools for grad school. If anybody here has networks for grad advisors, that sort of thing. And I've definitely succeeded in, I think, getting everything out of this that I've wanted so far. So it's been great.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. And that kind of leads into my next question, which is for Danielle. Are you considering graduate school?
Yeah, I think I can say now I do. So before the internship, I was thinking about it because it does sound nice to have a PhD title. And it's always nice to come back to that. And that was kind of like my thinking process. So I've always been interested in research, but I didn't know if like a 4 or 5 year program was a good thing for me, and if I wanted to commit to something so long term. But now after doing research, I'm just amazed. It's amazing. I'm really, really enjoying it. So I'm definitely going to apply to grad school. I don't know yet if in the US or in Europe. I think both continents offer pretty good opportunities. So we'll see about that.
Well, and the nice thing is a lot of science teams are very collaborative and international, and you can bring your expertise to really diverse groups of people wherever you might be.
Yeah, that's actually something I would like to say something about. So I think it's, even if you're like from a small school or like a small university and you're not from the US, nor you're not from one of the really big schools, and you're maybe concerned that you don't have the connections or the right references to get into this internship, the planetary science community is so connected. So professors at my university, on the other side of the world, work with scientists here and vice versa. And yeah, I think that's just a great thing about the planetary science community in general, and that's why I really love it.
So a question that I'll just open up to all of you. If you could give advice to yourself, a year ago when you were considering applying, is there any piece of advice now that you've been most of the way through the internship, any wisdom you would impart to yourself as an applicant now?
I'd say just to be more confident. I literally told one of my references, I don't think I'll get it because I'm an international student. And he was like, they need their token Canadian, you'll be fine. So like, I mean, just being confident and like in your skill set and in yourself is hugely important, because if you're not confident in yourself, how can other people be confident in you? Right? Like, you're the one who knows yourself best. And I mean, you should be fine, like saying like, hey, I can apply to an internship like this that does accept international students. And like, I can get the internship.
I think that's a great point. And I would also just emphasize that, interns, graduate students, volunteers, they bring a huge amount of value to the scientific machine around the world. Like, science would grind to a halt without the contributions of early career scientists and interns, grad students. So yeah, having this confidence that I'm not just asking for something, I have something to give is really important. Does anyone else want to add anything?
I guess mine is kind of the same as what Kyla was saying. Like, I almost didn't apply to this, especially because I had already been applying to research and internships throughout my career in college, and was getting rejected all the time. So I was kind of like, no one else, accepted my application. So like, why would NASA, and then one of my professors talked me into just doing it. He's like, you never know. You can't, you can't know what they're going to say. And so I was like, hey, fine. So I did it. And then I ended up getting it. So, just go for it. Like, even if you don't think that you have the skills or whatever it is, on your resume, and even if you do get rejected, your first time, like, don't get discouraged. Like, just keep going, keep learning new things, adding new things to your resume, whatever little experiences you can get, they add up. And, who knows, maybe in the future, it'll be enough to get you to the next one.
What about the more nitty gritty? Like, do any of you wish you had started on the application earlier? When should you reach out to, your reference letter writers? Anything like that? Yeah.
Earlier is always better. So I would say take a look at the application, decide in your head how long it's going to take, start twice as early. I think it's funny because I can actually play a little bit of devil's advocate on this one, because I always wait till the last minute for everything. But I didn't apply for any other internships this summer. This is a very competitive internship, and I just applied for this one. And I'd say that if I had to give myself advice, I would have applied for more because something to understand is how much opportunity there is within the field of planetary science, not just here at the LPI. And I'd say any advice in that regard, a lot of opportunity starts with a cold call. Just reaching out, unprovoked, even if there's not like a application that universities are putting out. Do your research, find professors, find people in the field who are doing science that interests you, and reach out. Even if you're not trying to ask for any direct employment or internship opportunities, just to learn. So really, I'd say cast your net wide, and if you really want to put effort into something, start early. If you really want it, put the effort in.
Exactly. I think that's super important. I have a couple questions here. Okay, these are more for Claudia. But let's see, one of these questions, so does being selected as an intern mostly have to do with the reputation of your college?
No, plain and simple, no. I mean, like, it should be a accredited college, but as long as like you're interested in the field and you show that you're interested in the field, you can still get in. Like, I'm not even in a planetary science major. I don't have planetary science background and I got in.
Yeah, I'll second that because not only do I not personally have planetary science specific experience, my school does not expressly offer a planetary science program at the undergraduate or graduate level. And so if you want proof, there it is.
I would also add, I go to a really small undergraduate college, and it can sometimes actually be a benefit because maybe the professors there are really looking for undergrads to take initiative, and they are all the only people who will be doing research. So maybe if you feel like your school is not a big name or that people won't know it if you first say it to them, there are some benefits. Maybe you'll have a better relationship with a mentor who can really help you along if you have a smaller school.
And I'll just add, I was not familiar with any of the universities and colleges that this group came from. So no, I think it so strongly just depends on the individual and their enthusiasm, their background, their record of showing that they're really interested. And we're going to hear from Claudia real quick to follow up on this.
Hi, Grace. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I was responding to the online questions.
Well, Claudia, if it's okay, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about just briefly, like the finance. So,
Yes.
what the cost is to be an intern here.
So once we have a selected applicant, they will receive a financial support, and the selected applicant will receive up to $7,720 in financial support to cover the cost associated with being in Houston for the duration of the program. This amount covers the internship stipend, travel, housing, and cost of living. Interns traveling from international locations may be eligible to receive an additional $500 to cover those expenses. I hope I answered your question.
You did. Whoops. Wrong unmute button. Whoops. You did. Thank you. I did just want to follow on with, there had been a couple questions about housing. So the LPI helps to organize that for the interns, right?
Yes, I responded under the Q&A I have early on, I responded to that question. We provide housing at University Forest Apartments, and we manage that aspect so like that the intern is not having to stress over and trying to find affordable housing. And the great thing about University Forest is that it's right next door to University of Houston. So interns are paired up with their fellow interns, and they're able to have this camaraderie, not just during business hours, but also after business hours.
And then there's one more question in the Q&A that is more for you, Claudia, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it since I've got you here. How many students apply versus get in?
This year we had an overwhelming response. We had over 900 applications. So with that said, we had 900 applications, but out of that 900 applications, many were incomplete. And I wanted to touch base on one of the questions that you asked earlier. It was to how to submit a successful application. Many of the applicants were incomplete they did not follow the instructions. They did not submit the letter of recommendation. They identified their university and put their name as the university. So we do look at things like that. And that's not means of disqualification. It's just that we're looking for folks to follow instructions that are handed down and provide all materials within the deadline, not after. And also be kind to the person who you're asking for a recommendation. Talk to them in advance. Don't lay it on them 24 hours before the deadline, 2 days before the deadline. Be kind to them. Give them your letter of reference. Give them your resume, because your advisor, who may be, they have other students, and it would be helpful that you highlight the activities that you participated outside of your classroom. For an example, you led a geological field trip. They may not remember that. And those are the things that we're looking for the advisor to identify what separates you from everyone else to get into this internship. Sorry, Grace, I went off on left field on you, but I felt like that was important to share because a few questions are coming through.
Yeah, that's super valuable information. Thank you, Claudia.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have a couple of minutes left. We're probably going to do our last group question. If you have final questions for the panel, we can get them in. So go ahead and drop them into the Q&A. But for our last question, so we touched on it a little bit, but how has your experience as an intern helped to shape your interests or your next steps? So does anyone want to jump in and answer this one? Okay.
All right, so switching from major to major to finally deciding geology, it's still fairly new to me. I mean, I have been undergrad declared a geology major for, I mean, this is I'm going into my 4th year now. But I feel like it's kind of overwhelming. Like there's a lot that you can do with a geology degree, which I did not realize that when I started this, especially when you start looking into planetary. And so coming here, like one of my main goals that I think I touched on earlier was, trying to figure out, if I want to do this and then what exactly I want to do with it. And so getting to work on a project with a mentor who's focused on Mars has really gotten me thinking about, continuing into Mars research because it's really cool. And there's a lot of really cool, exciting stuff that's coming out and that we're getting return samples sometime in the future, hopefully, and like there's all this, new stuff coming out, new research and all this stuff. And so it's really exciting. And so getting to, see what she does, sorry, I keep hitting your chair, on a daily basis. And then, but also like talking to other people too, and learning what they do and what they're passionate about. It's like, okay, well, so I could do this, but maybe I could also do this. So there is still a little bit of decision making that needs to happen, but it's definitely given me a bit more direction than I had when I came in here. So it's been really helpful.
Awesome. And yeah, I feel like you're learning when you're realizing that you know less and less about the field.
Yes.
That's when you're like, okay, I'm learning because I feel even smaller. But that's exciting, right? So many different directions you can take.
Yeah.
I would like to jump in there and add on to that. So I'm really enjoying my project. So I could see myself there in the future working on impact craters. But one very important thing I learned here talking to the scientists is that planetary science is so flexible. So I was always concerned because I thought right after my undergraduate degree, I have to choose this very specific niche that I'm going to work in for the rest of my life. And how do I know what I want to do for the rest of my life? That's impossible. But here it just showed me that you can start off in one field. So we heard from one scientist who started off in geochemistry and then he worked in geophysics and then he did planetary physics. And like all those different disciplines that were not necessarily interconnected, but in planetary science they are. And so that's what I got from here. And I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm just going to see where life takes me. I'm just going to do whatever I enjoy most in the moment. And then, yeah, just stay in planetary science.
I think something about this internship that's been really just exciting and inspiring is being able to be at Johnson Space Center and also at the LPI, where the walls are kind of filled with posters where you can just even see really beautiful images of other research that maybe you don't know a lot about. Also, we've had tours of the Johnson Space Center where we see different labs and facilities, and we really have a lot of opportunities to learn about kind of the diversity of jobs that are available in the field, from like research scientists to maybe you manage a lab or a specific instrument. You get to learn what a lot of different people do research on. And so it's really a great place to kind of learn about the multifaceted field that planetary science is.
To piggyback off of that point, being so close to Johnson, I'd say that this internship through many avenues has really put the idea of going into mission science into the realm of achievability for me specifically, and it's what I would like to now pursue going into grad school and beyond. And so that's a really exciting development that I feel like I did not have before coming here. And so I'm very excited to see what direction my path kind of continues to go as I progress further through my academic field. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've had the same sorts of experiences where I learned so much about planetary science. Like, I mean, I didn't know even what regolith was when I came in, and I'm doing a project that has direct implications towards regolith.
What's regolith?
Regolith is like soil, but without the organic component. Yeah. And so, like, for me, it was really just getting to learn about like planetary science as a whole and what different aspects of it were most interesting towards, like, for me. And then also the fact that I like the project I'm on now kind of brings together two really big interests of mine, which is plant science and space science. And see how those can work together and learn about different avenues, even within that very niche subject. There's a lot of different avenues within that subject.
That's awesome. I love hearing this. It's awesome to hear the step that you're all on in your trajectory of like growing. This is one really huge and important step, but there will be many more to come. We're excited to see what you all do in the future. Thank you so much to our wonderful panel. Clap, 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 clap. They had a big milestone today. They submitted their project abstracts, which is much more like a mini paper. So they're doing awesome stuff, and they'll be wrapping up their projects very soon. But thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you will also apply to this internship, spread the word to other students who might be interested. And we've got a lot of other great resources on our website. So feel free to reach out if you have questions as a follow-up to this. But again, just thanks for being here, and goodbye.
Thank you.